Welcome back to the Georgia Show. I'm here with my good friend Bill Quinn, who's been working hard on a lot of fraud information. Is that right, Bill?
It is. It seems like we have concentrated in the last few weeks largely on politics and the campaigns. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of information surfacing around fraud. We want to tie that in mainly because we want to help try to protect people, especially Georgians, from what we are having reported to us. And we'll talk more about that through the show. So, interesting change of pace.
Yes, and in fact, that's nationwide, and we've still got some of the same themes. One is financial markets. I did an interview with David Cross this week, our resident financial advisor. We'll play some of that, not all of it, but interesting. He's been really spot on and consistent on his theories of the market, and I want to highlight that and give him some creds and let you guys have a chance to hear from him. So we'll do that. And then the other theme that is recurring, especially now that it looks like we're getting towards peace in the Persian Gulf, or at least some kind of ceasefire that's going to be sustainable, is the Ukraine conflict and the European push for a global war. And you saw Trump really backing away from that whole situation, which I find positive and encouraging. But a war in Europe is not good for anyone, a global war. And so we'll talk about that a little bit toward the end of the show. But you've got some other stuff to go through, Bill. What do you want to walk through?
All right, so we're going to talk about a what looks like international-based crime going on here in Georgia that we know of. We suspect that it is nationwide, or at least partially nationwide, but it came to our desk because of incidences here in Georgia, and so we wanted to raise the alert, talk to people about that, and make some recommendations as to what they could do to try to protect themselves. We'll go into that if you're ready. Did you want to take a break with an ad first?
Well, let me just
you went mute, Todd.
One of the problems we have here just dropped me again. Anyway, we're going to be rolling through a lot of changes here at CDM. We have a 24-hour Roku channel coming, as well as other studio upgrades, et cetera. You're going to see a lot of different things happening over the next few months. So look forward to that. We're brought to you by Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. Please check us out there. Sign up for our socials, CDM1 on Rumble, CDM on YouTube. Please subscribe and help us grow that. And also CDM_press, as well as Georgia Record on X. All right, go ahead, Bill. Let's get rolling.
All right, here we go. So this is going to be about what appears to be now an international theft cartel. And we're calling it a cartel because it appears to be organized and it appears to have people from various regions involved in it. Now, how deeply, how broadly, we don't know that yet, but it is concerning, and it is targeting Georgia seniors and Georgia retirees. Like so many cases where we've heard about fraud in past years, the seniors who perhaps are less suspectful, less apt to spot things that don't fit together, that don't make sense, seem to continue to be the target of some of these activities. Most people will remember that, the Ponzi scheme that came down here in Georgia, that is been focused on the First Liberty Building and Loan Organization. A lot of the victims in that were seniors, retirees, and other folks that might not have been as suspectful as they should have been. So let's take you through what we are being told at this hour. We're going to give you some data so that you have enough to protect yourselves or people within your family. There are some things we won't talk about because these are ongoing investigations, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize the legitimacy or the outcomes of those investigations. This is breaking news right now. So, as we said, this appears to be all across the country. We'll give you a couple examples. And here's how it works. Senior or retired individuals or families are being targeted, we believe. The cartel members, if we can refer to them that way, make contact typically via phone, and they identify themselves as authorities. We're using the word authorities because we don't want to focus on any one particular agency, but just the notion of someone that appears to be an authority calling your phone to speak with you and advise you that you may be being targeted for theft would, of course, raise concern in many people's minds. So seniors are advised during these phone calls that they are being targeted for theft. We don't have the level of detail to know all the different mechanisms that they're claiming are being used against them for this targeting, but they're telling folks, hey, you're in jeopardy. Someone's targeting you for theft, but we can help. And the authorities position themselves in order with an explanation that they are in a position to help protect the seniors' savings and assets. They advise the seniors to buy physical gold. Doesn't seem to be any one location. It doesn't appear to be involved. Any gold merchant does not seem to be directly involved in this. But what they do is they advise the seniors to go buy physical gold with their savings or their assets and have it delivered to the senior's home. Once that's been delivered, the authorities, the cartel members, arrange to instruct the senior to deliver the gold to a location where the authorities will meet them. Often this might be nearby what appears to be an appropriate authority location. Again, we're not going to characterize this, but they tell the person, okay, you've got your gold, great. Bring it to us so we can safeguard it. And of course, now once the gold is turned over to the quote unquote authority, the contact disappears. And so the person is left without their savings, they're left without their gold. And of course, physical gold is largely non-traceable. So it makes it very difficult to follow on unless there are activities in advance of this to advise the real authorities and head this off. So let's talk about that. The instances that we have been informed of include people operating in this manner in at least two locations we are told of, one here in Georgia and another in Southern California. So right away, when we talk about, this appears to be more organized, more broad than, simply a couple of guys that did something terrible. And so this lends us to want to bring this out and make it the information available to folks so that they can protect themselves. There is additionally some information that may be emerging that suggests that the folks that are good at this are in fact setting up, I'll call it organization or organizations, to train others. That's even more concerning perhaps because any number of folks might be doing this, but for them to wish to expand is very concerning. So what do you do? Well, one, the investigations are active right now. These are ongoing investigations. Folks have been identified as potentially part of this. We'll refer to them alleged suspects, I guess is the right term to use. They appear to include Chinese nationals as well as Latin nationals. Again, we come back to this. What makes us call this apparently some sort of international effort? Well, the fact that you've got groups from different regions around the world that seem to be involved in this, at least operating here in the US, suggest that that might be the case. What do you do if this happens to you or a family member? Seniors should contact local law enforcement immediately and report any contact, even from supposed authorities, advising them to move or turn over any assets of any kind. So, in other words, call comes in, someone says, I'm with XYZ agency. We've detected some sort of activity to try to steal from you. Here's what we want you to do. Okay. Get as much information as you can. Immediately contact local law enforcement. Give them all the data you've been able to gather, and they have mechanisms to verify any particular individuals or agencies that might be trying to alert you or contact you. And this is a great way of heading it off. Families should be aware of this and advise senior parents and family members to be on the lookout for these calls. Now, we've heard about similar things operating very locally. As a matter of fact, one of my family members was targeted several years ago with something similar to this, but at a much lower scale and with a much more local focus. This, because of the focus, we want to make sure that everybody that needs the information across Georgia has access to it and knows what to do. We have consulted with folks that are in a position to know what's going on with at least part of the investigations. We've consulted with those who are in a position to correctly advise what the proper steps would be should someone be contacted. We highly advise you to be prepared for this. Again, brief your senior parents, other senior family members, be on the lookout for this, and let's make sure that nobody else gets caught up in this dastardly crime across Georgia. We hope to have more on it. We have walked gingerly around this to make sure that we don't do anything that would jeopardize any of the investigations, but thought this was critical enough to bring out now so that people would be prepared for it.
You know, Bill, there's a version of that where they call, and it looks like, for instance, a Citibank number that will call you, and then they'll try to get you to verify your account and provide personal information. And then there's another variant of crypto company calling you, and they even have like a menu where you can go through and pick the operator, and then the operator sounds professional. But when they get to the questions of like, do you own crypto? Where is it housed? Mm-hmm. All that. I mean, it's very similar type of scam where they look official, but they're not.
That's right. The key is, unfortunately, many folks have grown up with the supposition that those in authority can be trusted. Well, just because someone says they are in authority doesn't mean that they actually are, piece one. And piece two is people that have been around for a while remember a day, I think, when you didn't have to be as suspicious as we do now. And so we hope that this will help some folks avoid this kind of crime, and wanted to bring it out. We will have more as we learn more. And I should say, too, that thank you to those who brought this forward to us so that we can get the word out. And as we've said dozens of times, much of our work is leveraged upon the knowledge and the work of people all across Georgia, and we appreciate that very much.
Okay, why don't we take a break, and we'll come back and right after this, and we'll have more for you on the Georgia show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
Divorce is tough, but your finances don't have to be. I'm David Cross, and I'm a certified divorce financial analyst practitioner. My job is to help you get a fair financial settlement in your divorce and to guide you to smarter money decisions. Find out how we can help you. U.S. Asset Management. It's your money and your future.
On that note, with the wellness company, right before the show, I noticed a tick fully engorged on between my toes, actually, and had to pull it out. And I had these symptoms of fatigue and I, kind of Lyme-like symptoms. So be aware of that. And you know what? I pulled out my trusty medical kit from the wellness company and started on the doxycycline immediately. So twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, you get 10% off. Make sure you protect your family so you can deal with all these things and not have to go to the pharmacy and go through all that rigmarole. All right, back to you, Bill.
So the deep state appears to be targeting us personally with ticks now.
Yeah. Well, actually, the ticks are from Plum Island, where they developed Lyme disease, which was
goodness.
So, yeah.
Well, glad you found it. All right, we have spoken in the past about the work of David Kate, and David has worked with Jason Frazier, who many know as an election integrity expert here in Georgia, and toured a number of properties showing that vacant lots, abandoned homes, homes that could not house the number of people registered there, were being used to house or to be the address, if you will, of record for what appear to be inappropriate registrations. And both David Kate and Jason called this out, even with Dana Barrett, who's running for Secretary of State. And she literally ran for the car to avoid the questions because she called it conspiracy theories. They're not. They're inappropriate registrations at locations all across, especially Fulton County, but really in many counties across Georgia. David has now turned his attention to fraud, and we wanted to bring out and amplify some of the work that he has already done and give you the benefit of that. So he focuses currently on the fact that U.S. fraud in really all forms appears to be at least $500 billion. And $100 billion of that is in healthcare fraud in, again, various formats. So we're going to play a portion of one video, and then this is going to have one foot in both medical and financial fraud for taxpayers. And like many things, it's going to have a bit of a foot in politics as well. We'll save that for the second portion. So let's listen to the beginning of his coverage with one of his colleagues.
$1 billion is lost annually in America to fraud, and over $100 billion of it is in healthcare fraud.
With Georgia now ranking as one of the worst states in the entire nation, we decided to step in and investigate it. But nothing prepared us for the massive corporate pipeline we stumbled into next. We uncovered a systematic healthcare kickback scheme, shady marketing rings, pre-populated charts, and millions of dollars in medical equipment device fraud, funded entirely by your tax dollars.
Right here in Georgia, a single medical fraud syndicate was just hit with a massive $522 million federal indictment. And an elected state insurance commissioner, the very man whose job it was to oversee and police fraud, was just sentenced to federal prison for running a healthcare kickback conspiracy. But the money trail doesn't stop at a clinic door, a random suburban call center, or even at the commissioner's office. We follow the money lines all the way to a major civil settlement involving a multi-billion-dollar healthcare network.
And that led us to this guy, Rick Jackson.
The guy that is running to be the next governor of Georgia.
Now that we have the names on the table, we have to look at the sheer scale of the system, because what's happening here in Georgia isn't an isolated anomaly. The system is leaking billions. In fact, federal data shows that under Operation Rubber Stamp, a massive $4.5 billion national healthcare fraud takedown, a staggering $1.5 billion of that entire total was concentrated right here in Georgia. We spend such a massive percentage of our entire budget on healthcare. It's a massive industry. The more people doing it, the harder it is to have enough manpower to go find all of this fraud?
So bad across the entire country, not just here in Georgia. That's why there's a White House task force that is looking at exactly this kind of stuff, the healthcare fraud.
So what this executive order does is force the entire apparatus of the federal government to do two things: stop the fraud in the American taxpayer and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens and not to fraudsters.
Fabian, believe it or not, this is the place. This is 6755 Peachtree Boulevard.
This place defrauded Medicare for $500 million. I mean, look at this place inside. It's completely empty. I don't know if you can see inside here, but this is just an empty room. There's nothing in here. But at a point, there was just a bunch of telemarketers all over this address, just calling people and telling them that they get free genetic testing, and then just charging a ton of money for fake tests that they didn't even need. You drive around places like this, these random buildings that you never think about. Who would have thought that in this building there was $500 million of fraud happening?
I used to actually drive through this exact road when I was 15 years old to go play tennis.
It's not like this is an old case. A guy just went to jail 3 weeks ago for 12 and a half years, and his partner got around 3 years. A $500 million ring run out of a single room proves exactly how vulnerable our public tax dollars really are. But an operation can only get this massive if it has a steady stream of data. Now, to see how these groups extract that information from everyday citizens, we had to look at the exact boiler room where these schemes are born.
We're standing in the middle of Duluth's call center corridor here in Gwinnett County.
This is a place where the FBI targets because there are highly sophisticated telemarketing scam call centers all around this area.
The call centers played a key role in this entire scheme. They essentially were the bridge between the customer and a healthcare company. Fabian, what does that actually really mean?
And this is how the scheme works. Step 1. A call center buys a list of Medicare seniors. Names, addresses, ID numbers. These lists are sold commercially. Step 2. They call those seniors, pitching a medical device they didn't ask for, fully covered by Medicare. The senior says yes. Step 3. The call center fills out a prescription, pre-populated as if a doctor diagnosed the patient. Step 4, they pay a doctor to sign that prescription without ever seeing the patient. The doctor is paid per signed order. Step 5, an equipment supplier bills Medicare. Medicare pays, and the money flows back through the chain. The senior gets equipment they never needed. All of these schemes, they have the same common denominators. You get a call center, you come up with a reason to call people, you get their data, and then the people call and tell them that they get something for free or that they can qualify for something for free. They sell the actual item, which doesn't need to be sold. That racks up all the bills, and then Americans are wondering why they can't afford Medicare.
But that $500 million vacant lab isn't an isolated anomaly. All across the state of Georgia, the federal floodgates have burst wide open. The problem is so bad in Georgia that it even led us to top officials whose job it was to stop this from happening. And now we're standing outside of the federal courthouse. This is the actual place that goes and prosecutes all of those fraudsters, like the place that was defrauding the government for $500 million.
So check this out. This is how pervasive this healthcare fraud is here in Georgia. The former insurance commissioner of Georgia pled guilty here in 2024 to a healthcare fraud-related kickback conspiracy.
Details tonight, a federal indictment for Georgia's former insurance commissioner.
Charges set forth that Mr. Oxendine conspired to obtain kickbacks for unnecessary lab tests and then use his insurance services business to hide those kickbacks.
John Oxendine accused of conspiring with a doctor to pressure other doctors to order those tests.
The guy whose job it was to police healthcare fraud pled guilty to it.
That's why Georgians care so much about healthcare fraud, medical fraud, because as you can see, it's rampant here. The commissioner who oversees and makes sure that there shouldn't be any of these shenanigans was in on the scheme himself.
But the public record shows that while the feds were inside this courthouse locking up the man who was supposed to regulate healthcare fraud, they were simultaneously handling a huge corporate settlement involving the empire of a man who now wants to run the entire state.
All right, we're going to come back to this in just a minute, but notice that they describe in detail how this works. This is, as simple as getting to people that qualify potentially with a doctor's agreement that they may get certain equipment, yet they're getting it for them and they don't need it. This could be anything from, various types of medical equipment to services to other things. And they have an entire system set up so that they can get the physician's signature on a document. They can run it through the system, get paid. The person ends up with the device or whatever it is. The problem is they never needed it. They were simply acting on something that a telemarketer told them, coming from a call in a boiler room someplace. And you can tell that there's, a cluster of these kinds of activities in that area that David highlighted. Okay, so he was just beginning to talk about the next level of this and the fact that this has a foot in corporate healthcare here in Atlanta and here in the Southeast. We're going to go ahead and go to this part and hear their report on the corporate incidents that they have uncovered. Let's talk about this.
It might seem like we went to Rome, but in fact, we're just outside of Atlanta, Georgia at Rick Jackson's $100 million Italian-inspired healthcare campus.
Yeah, this place is absolutely massive. This is where 20 of his subsidiaries are located, one of which had to settle with the government for $700,000.
According to public records published by the Department of Justice, federal investigators scrutinized a telemedicine pipeline involving this exact subsidiary. The government contended that the company positioned a physician to electronically approve pre-populated orders for durable medical equipment and genetic testing generated by an outside telemarketing outfit for Medicare beneficiaries the doctor never actually treated or examined in person. When you look at an operation of that magnitude, you have to look at what's on the verified public record. We aren't dealing in political rumors. We are looking directly at federal case documents.
Believe it or not, Rick Jackson has already spent $100 million trying to convince Georgians that all of this is not a conflict of interest.
You know, David, I live in California. We have a similar situation. His name is Gavin Newsom. And as these companies were actively lobbying Newsom for laws, his wife suddenly got an extra $800,000 to donations to her nonprofit from the same people that were lobbying her husband to change the laws.
How do we know that the same thing's not going to happen with Rick Jackson here? How do we know that some lobby groups or companies aren't going to be pouring money into this industry here in order to influence whatever decision comes from the governor's office?
Well, David, you got to trust it because $100 million says it's not a big problem.
$100 million says it's not a big problem. Well, we will see. We suspect we're going to see quite a bit more from David and others as they investigate further this notion of medical fraud as it exists in Georgia and elsewhere. In addition to this, David did some work on the organizations that are being funded from George Soros, from the Tides organization, Arabella, and others. And I wanted to spend a few minutes on this because this goes back to something we reported several months ago now, but we find it's just as important now as it was back then. Let's take a look at this.
I went undercover as a Democrat voter to a Tesla protest here in Atlanta, Georgia. I wanted to go undercover to better understand, first of all, why they're protesting, but also I wanted to find out, are they actually being paid to protest? I just wanted to investigate this claim of Elon Musk that they are literally paid protesters. So first of all, here's the demographic of the people at the protest. The majority of the people that I saw there were white boomers. And the boomers would sometimes even have their parents there with them. The women had really nice name brand bags and purses, and the husbands looked like they were just dragged out there. I'm telling you guys this because this doesn't fit the demographic of people who are paid to protest. And this also kind of debunks the left's claim that these are disenfranchised MAGA voters. All of these people voted for Kamala. But that doesn't mean that George Soros didn't fund this and didn't organize this with his money. So the people protesting may not be actually paid, but the people who organized the protest are, and I'm going to show you guys how. This right here is one of those paid organizers, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how she gets paid. Remember last year with the college encampments, how certain George Soros-tied organizations received endless amount of money from George Soros so they can disperse it to organizers? And those organizers were getting paid upwards of $7,800 just to protest for 8 hours a week? Well, the exact same thing is happening here. Here are 5 radical leftist groups protesting Elon Musk, one of which received $7.6 million, none other than from George Soros. And one of those groups, known as Invisible Project, received that $7.6 million from George Soros to do exactly what you guys are seeing, to boycott and to protest anything related to President Trump. So it's very safe to say that the people protesting are probably not getting paid, but the organizers, they're getting a nice paycheck. So Elon, you're right in a sense. These people aren't paid protesters, but the people organizing this definitely are.
If you were watching his report, he said Invisible Project. Actually, if you read it, it's Indivisible Project. And we reported on this going back, as I said, several months. And you can find it on CDM_press. You can find it on Insist on Truth. And indeed, one of the things that we found was Forsyth County has a member of its election board tied to this indivisible organization. This was originally reported and called out by U.S. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, who published a list of the organizations being funded by what at that time was being referred to collectively as Riot Inc. And one of those organizations is known as Indivisible. So zoom in on this. Here is the report that she published. And if we go into there, you can see that Indivisible Civics, which is the technical name, was being funded by Soros, Tides, Arabella, and probably others as well. This particular report, which dates a few months ago, had $6 million. I suspect we're going to find it's quite a bit more than that now. But more importantly, perhaps for the folks here in Georgia, there is a sitting member of an election board up in Forsyth County, Anita Tucker, who is a member of this indivisible organization or collaborates with them, I guess is a better way to put it. Here she is speaking at a rally in Forsyth County. And this, again, is a person that is sitting on the county election board for Forsyth County and is acting in some way along with this indivisible org, which is benefiting from Soros funding coming from several sources. Troubling? You betcha. And that's why we wanted to remind people. We had talked about this months ago. And to his credit, David Cate is bringing it out again, showing that indeed the organizers of these various things are in fact getting funded apparently by Soros and potentially others to foment what looks like unrest when perhaps that's not really there.
And
all right.
it's a national group. It's all over the country.
It is. Okay, so we've covered some concerning things. I wanted to cover one thing that we believe is very good in the grand scheme of things. We had reported on the findings by the wellness company, the McCullough Foundation, and their work to get peer-reviewed studies to confirm the initial results. And indeed, those peer-reviewed studies are beginning to come out, and they are very positive. And I'm going to play this so folks can see it. If you'll bear with me for just a minute, I'll pull up the video. But they are showing that indeed combinations of ivermectin and menbendazole and perhaps other compounds do appear to be having good results, potentially up to 84% good results in patients that are taking them. Let's hear this.
100 cancer patients, they were prescribed ivermectin and menbendazole compounded tablets, and after 6 months, 84.4% of them declared either remission, tumor regression, tumor shrinkage, or cancer stabilization. The tumor stopped growing. 84%. And now it is officially peer-reviewed and published in a major cancer journal, published by the International Institute of Anti-Cancer Research. They've been around since the 90s. And so now it is going mainstream. So this is absolutely huge. And it's the largest human study to date showing that ivermectin and menbendazole have a extremely large clinical benefit signal.
Okay. So for folks that already know about this should be very, very good support for what I hope they've already begun to move on. If folks do not know about it, we highly recommend that families share this with folks in their family or friends that may need to know about it, and refer them to this now peer-reviewed clinical study that supports exactly what the Wellness Company and the McCullough Foundation have been talking about now for months. In anecdotal conversations with doctors in the area, many are reporting that many of their patients are asking about this now. And indeed, if this turns into a better outcome, then it's a great example of, people do indeed have the right to try. And there's lots of good things that can come from this. So we highly recommend folks, if they need more information, take a look at the McCullough Foundation, take a look at Nick Hulsher on X. The Wellness Company has additional information, and they can also advise how to acquire the compounds that are mentioned in these peer-reviewed studies. Back to you, Todd.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
Okay, I sat down with our good friend David Cross, talked about financial markets. I'm not going to play all the interview, but just wanted to give you his highlights for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to talk Ukraine. So here we go. We're back with our good friend and resident financial advisor, David Cross, the guy you need to call if you have troubles or thoughts or questions on your portfolio. David, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Todd. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to get you on because the markets are so crazy right now. I was reading an article the other day on Zero Hedge, and it said the bond market is about to put Washington in check. There's a lot of, stress in especially the commercial debt market and private credit market. But what say you? What do you think is what are the underpinnings of the market right now? And I have your deck when you're ready.
Yeah. So the underpinnings of the market that I think a lot of people continue to forget, and that some people just aren't aware of, is the fact that there is massive money printing that has gone on, that is still going on. And for anybody who doesn't know, the way that money printing works is that if the government brings in this much money in tax revenue, but they spend this much money, me and you, we have to put the difference on the credit card, right? What the government does is that they go to the Xerox machine and start printing off $100 bills, and it's legal for them to do it, but it's illegal for us to do it. So, but that's the way they pay their bills. And we've seen this before. In 1951, the very first war bonds started coming due, and the United States Treasury did not have enough money to pay those bonds off. So they said, folks, we've got a deal for you. We're not going to pay you the $1,000 back that we borrowed from you right now. We're going to give it to you in 30 years. But when you get it, 30 years from now, we're also going to pay you like 3% interest all along the way. So that's
what they didn't tell you is that they're inflating away the value of that bond, and it'll be worth much less than 30 years. But
and the thing is that politicians are the kings at kicking the can down the road. And so what happened was in 1971, 10 years before these bonds were coming due, that's when kind of like the crap hit the fan, and Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, because at that time they were already beginning to print money because they just didn't have enough money to keep up with the amount of expenditures that were going on. So our government, their answer to everything is not enough money, print more. Don't control spending, Just go print more money. And the whole reason why this is important, and what everybody should take away from this, is that the reason why the price of your house, like in the last 20 something years, has gone from like 300,000 to $1 million, or 200,000 to, to 500,000 or 600,000, is not because it's like this fantastic investment. It's just because the government's printed a huge amount of dollar bills. And if you think about, like, if you and me and 10 other people were stuck in a grocery store, and the stock, and the shelves are filled with products, they're not adding more products to the store. But if the government came along and said, okay, when you came in the store, you had $100 in your pocket, but now we've printed a bunch of money, and there's now, $1,000 in your pocket. Well, the price of everything just went up 10x. It's become more valuable. It's just a function of how much cash is.
Just the currency became less valuable because
Correct.
There's more of it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, how is that impacting the structure of our economy right now? Are we getting? I guess my question is: are we getting toward the end of that, or what do you think that that technique?
I don't think so. I think that this thing can drag on for a long time. There's an old saying that I'm very fond of that says that markets can remain. What's the word I'm looking for? Markets can remain. Having a hard time with this. Markets can be unreasonable or untamed longer than you can remain solvent.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I remember that. And my favorite from my Wall Street bond days is interest rates are low until they're not. So that's kind of, I mean, at some point, and the point of this article I read is that the bond vigilantes may put a check on spending in the Gulf, in Iran, just because the economic, not just the spending, but the Strait of Hormuz, the price of oil, all that is going to impact. But we'll see. So, tell me more. What do you see in the markets? Do you want me to bring up your deck?
Let's hop into the deck, because one of the things that we're seeing right now is that markets are kind of going crazy right now. So just a little disclaimer here is this is not financial advice. None of the, there's no recommendations that I'm giving in here. If you happen to see something that looks like a recommendation, that's your imagination, because I'm not giving recommendations here. I'm just trying to point out the facts. So take a look at like what's moving in the market right now. So what's moving is the risky stuff. That's the crazy thing we're seeing right now. So, Micron Technologies went from like this little also-ran company that nobody really cared about to all of a sudden they make memory chips, and data centers need memory chips, and they need lots of them. And some of these AI companies have gone to companies like Micron and some of the other memory manufacturers and said, hey, we want to buy all of your supply, like for the next 4 years. So if anybody needs memory for the computers at work or the laptops, screw them. We need it for the data center. So Micron has said, okay, well, we'll raise the price of stuff. And the price of DRAM, the stuff that goes like in your laptop, has just gone parabolic. I mean, it used to be like $160, like for like 32 gigs of RAM. And now it's like, I looked at it today, it's like $460. It's crazy. So Micron's gone up quite a bit. Intel is kind of crazy. Back in November, it was like $40 a share, $45 a share. And now it's like 110, 120 bucks. I mean, it's up huge. Advanced Micro Devices, SanDisk, I think is up like 1,000% in the last year. And for anybody who doesn't know what 1,000% means, it means that you 10x your money, and that makes put $1,000 into it. Now it's worth 10,000. If you put 10,000,
10 bagger, as they say.
Yeah, in 1 year, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I've got a big arrow on that screen right there, because it shows what the beta is. And what you'll see is most of those stocks have a beta greater than 100%. And 100% means that's basically the market risk, the market beta. Anything more than that shows that it's more risky. So Micron is basically 2.5 times more risky than the market. Intel is 2. AMD is the same thing. So that, some of these things can be quite volatile. They're going up, which is a wonderful thing.
And it's a wonderful thing until the music stops. And the thing is I don't know when the music's going to stop.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I have another favorite phrase that says that, the only people who buy at the bottom and sell at the top are lucky and liars. So take that for what it's worth.
I'm going to cut it off there. You can find the whole interview on our Rumble or YouTube channel. Very good walkthrough with David Cross on the markets. And of course, if you have questions on your financial issues, planning or divorce issues or sale of a business or whatever, David's the guy to call at usassetmanagement.com. Let me just bring that up so people can see it. That is usam.com, us-am.com. All right. So I also am concerned about the Ukrainian issue. And I think, Bill, you wanted to highlight some of the connections between Georgia and Ukraine, didn't you?
Well, you've reported on many of them. The fact that we had Ukrainian troops and other authorities being trained in some locations. I would characterize it as quietly trained. Yeah. And when you asked for information on it, as I recall, you didn't get a lot, which was troubling in and of itself.
Yeah, that was up in Rome, Georgia, where the Ukrainian police were being trained by the local units.
That's right. And, we've got some of the federal representatives too, that appear to have more than their fair share of liking to Zelensky and the Ukrainian regime. One of whom I've called out a number of times, Rich McCormick. He traveled around the world to go bend the knee to Zelensky, and at the time, many people said, "Oh, well, gosh, we're just trying to help these poor people that are being put upon by Russia." Well, now in the fullness of time, we recognize that many of the things that Russia was doing and is doing are not necessarily what they were portrayed to be. And Zelensky and the Ukrainians have some real splaining to do over time, much of which is remaining yet to be done. Some of which has to do with their treatment of their own people, taking people and basically kidnapping them, putting them in vans and taking them to the front so that their life expectancy was counted in hours, not days in some cases. Closing churches, shuttering churches, arresting priests, nominating a satanic priestess to be their ambassador, Marina Abramovic. Just crazy stuff. Why would anybody have an affinity for these people? Really gives pause. And this is one of the people that gives me that question. So we wanted to call that out.
And it's just want to make it's the Ukrainian government. It's the people in charge. It's not the Ukrainian people.
That's
and
correct.
I want to play a short interview. I'm not going to play it all. It's also on our Rumble and YouTube channels with one of our sources in Kiev, Alex. We'll leave it with that. And you just need to know what's going on in this conflict. So here we go. Speaking of saving humanity, we have a genocide going on in East Europe, and it's in Ukraine. The war is continuing. It's escalating, and we've got the guy to talk about it. I'm going to bring on Alex now from Ukraine. Alex, thank you for joining me, man.
Hello, Todd.
So what's happening? We've kind of taken our eye off the ball, but more territory is being lost in Donbass. Tell us about that.
Well, we are in the 5th year of this ethnocidal war.
Mm-hmm.
5th year. Nobody could believe 4 years ago. Nobody could believe this. And
but you've been right. You've been telling me for a long time it's going to go on and on and on.
Yes, and from my observation, this is the 5th wave of escalation caused by external actors outside of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And the current wave of escalation is is forecasted for the summer. I mean, we're at the end of May, so both sides declared that there would be offensive operation. Russia declared that there would be offensive operation on Zaporizhia and Donetsk, and it is forecasted that the new operation would eventually target Kiev. And Asymmetrically enough, Syrsky, General Commander Syrsky, declared that Ukraine will commence offensive operation on Donetsk region in June. So I guess what is going on?
Yeah. Does Ukraine have the ability to do that? Military capability to do that?
I haven't heard about any of additional supply of weapons and arms in the last 6 months.
Mhm.
As you may have heard, the United States stopped supply in August of last year.
Mhm.
However, the European Union countries supplied unknown amounts of calibers and weaponry to Ukraine. I don't know the numbers, so I guess that there are some numbers of weapons for the offensive operations, but just 2 weeks ago, the mobilization efforts have been intensified in Ukraine. The private bounty hunters simply raid each city, each village in Ukraine. My friends who are men within the drafting age, they simply have to sit down at home, and their women or their mothers go to buy groceries and food.
Mhm.
And one of my friends even had to escape from the bounty hunters riding a bike.
Mm.
And when he went to buy bread in a food market, a shop attendant hit him behind the counter.
Really?
The bounty hunters, tried to get him.
Wow.
So I'm looking at videos in the internet. I haven't sent you those mobilization kidnapping videos lately, but
There's plenty of them there.
the aggression of bounty hunters increased to the point that I don't believe anymore in the nation. I don't believe anymore in the good intentions of the government, or so-called government of Ukraine, which is being called government right now of Ukraine, which kidnaps people and kicks people and kills people on the streets. What we're talking about, I'm talking about right now, is the same as killing people on the streets.
Yeah.
So, in my understanding, there's a civil war, and there's an ethnocide towards the
white Christian population.
White Christian population of Ukraine, and there's the military war. So there are 3 wars currently going on in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's so. Before we move on, Zelensky wanted more patriots. I guess that's been cut off. They sent a letter, and Trump didn't respond. Are they going to get to the point where they can't defend against incoming strikes?
Yes, and just several days ago, there was a huge strike in Kyiv because Zelensky ordered to shoot the rockets onto Russian territory and Donetsk region territory. And Putin got really furious about those strikes from Ukraine. And that is why just 5 days ago, there was a huge response strike onto Kyiv, and some rockets hit several military buildings in Kyiv. And one of the rockets even flew to near the building near Verkhovna Rada, near the building where you visited Kyiv.
Years ago. It's been
years ago. It's been
4 years ago.
Quite a year. Yeah. So it was the kind of the revenge strike on Kyiv, and apparently the air defense units, Patriots, that are located near Kyiv and are located in the center of Kyiv, could not hit the quantity of missiles incoming onto the center of Kyiv. Only several Patriot missiles were fired onto the incoming Russian missiles, and that's why the ballistic missiles shot from Russia hit their targets in Kyiv. Of course, there were a couple of photos and videos that some of those rockets did not hit intended. For example, one rocket hit the bazaar near the military factory on Lukyanevsk metro station. But I think that was one of the rockets, and it was kind of, as you can call it, collateral damage or side damage.
So the last question before we can move to your deck, but Zelensky is all about buying, I think, 150, what is it, Gripen aircraft from Sweden. These are like old technology, right? Can they even function in this battlefield, do you think?
I'm in my next phase of learning about the U.S. fighter airplanes. I visited several air shows recently, and I read about Gripen and the talks to get those Gripen air fighters have commenced 4 years ago. And for 4 years they could not give those old fighters to Ukraine. What's the purpose of buying an airplane which was developed in 1970s? I mean, this Gripen airplane is good for it's even less technically advanced in comparison to MiG-29. I mean, this is the old technology. The radars are very short. They cannot even fly to the front line. They cannot even shoot the air-to-ground missiles. Anybody who goes, who will fly on those Gripen airplanes near the front line, those are suicide rates. So,
it's almost like a kamikaze drone almost.
Kamikaze drone, you can use those Gripens as kamikaze drones. Just fly and just kill a tank. Or kill some commanding points on Russian frontline side, and that's it. Those are kamikaze airplanes. No point of sending them to Ukraine. At this point of time, there is no point of sending them to Ukraine.
All right, should we get into your slide deck?
Yes, let's take a look at some of the slides.
Okay.
All right, a little sitrep about Ukraine. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at the front line. So you can see that, well, the picture is very similar to what we have seen 4 years ago. I mean, it is similar, but the front line is moving. And there were major battles fought for and around several cities in Ukraine. And as you can see on this map, if you could compare this to the same kind of map 4 years ago, the Ukrainian army is withdrawing. So let's take a look at the next.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off there because we're out of time, but you can find that interview on our Rumble or YouTube channel. It goes on with more information on the front lines, but essentially the message is that Ukraine is losing on the ground, and therefore Europe is looking to start a major war with Russia to take their citizens' eyes off the economy and the destruction of their own economy, industry, energy supplies, and the theft by all the European governments of assets in Europe. And that is what we're facing. So, Bill, I've got one more video to close, but do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Just a reminder to everybody that we have the runoff elections coming up. Please make sure you plan to vote in those. Let your voice be heard, and we will see how things come out as we get further into that. There'll also be some videos of the debates that are going on that will come out. Those should be quite interesting, we believe.
All right, so I'll be back on the skiff tomorrow, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday. We're going to have a great show and another Ukraine sit rep this week with Pete Blaber, so make sure you join that. And we mentioned early in the show that the Ukrainian government is run by a bunch of criminals. It's organized crime. It's simply there to rape the land and kill the people and give it to somebody else. Who that someone else is to be determined, or you can make your own guesses, but that's what's going on. So we wanted to highlight just the humanity of the Ukrainian people. They've been very good to me, and I wanted to run a video, and then I'll hit the close button myself, Bill. But this is a group of Ukrainian students graduating high school in a bomb shelter. And if you want to see the humanity of what we're talking about and the culture, the Christian culture, Orthodox Christian culture, you don't see rap music, you don't see homelessness, you don't see drugs, you don't see ganja, you see culture. So here we go. We'll see you next time.
I take one look at you, you're taking me off of the ordinary. I want you laying me down to legendary. On the edge of your life, staying drunk and blind. You was up in the clouds, I'm jealous, knowing we found something so wild of the ordinary. You got me kissing the ground with a sanctuary. Shadow me when you die, will not return me.